Hi friends, Molton here and welcome back to my JTGM series where I talk you through my experiences and things I learned along the way to obtaining my title. So going on from my last video, I actually ended up getting my first ever Grandmaster norm in that particular tournament, and this was unexpected at the time, but it made me want to pursue my last two norms. And so in the next few months following, I put in a lot of training and a lot of work in order to realize this goal. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I did that, walk you through how to build an opening repertoire using various different resources such as Lichess, Chessbase, and so on, as well as preparation for your opponents, and also things you can do to work on other aspects of your game like your calculation and so on. So I'll give you some tips and recommendations for those. So I hope you enjoyed this particular video. Like, comment, subscribe if you learned something. Thanks, and I'll catch you in a few seconds. So I'll go through different things I did to improve different aspects of my game at the time, and also give you some helpful hints along the way on what you can do to improve no matter what level you're currently at. But I'll mention that at the time, going from 0 to 2400 was very difficult for me, but going from 2400 to 2500 was way harder. So if you feel stuck at any point in time in your chess, it's completely natural, because every single time you get higher and higher up, it gets more and more difficult to progress. So I'll start off with calculation, which is something I definitely worked on a daily basis. I found myself doing a mix of puzzles. So I would do the easier ones, which are more for just blitz and speed, and they're more focused on you just getting it really quickly, which can help you in time pressure situations and seeing things quickly. But you also want to mix those with a bunch of more complicated problems, which are definitely going to take you like 5 minutes or more at least, probably over 10, 15, 20 minutes to solve, because the goal here is to see as much as you can and work through as many variations as you possibly can. Nowadays, there's many resources you can find these such materials on. You can work through books, you can find them on sites like Chessable, other sites. You can find problems available on like Chess Tempo, Lichess, chess.com. So there are plenty of good resources out there, and I might do a separate video on my book recommendations if any of you are interested in knowing those. So that's in terms of calculation. That's what I did. In terms of improving positional play, I'll walk you through that as well, but mainly it came from analyzing games and looking at games in certain positions, especially ones which arose from the opening I played. So now we'll talk a little bit more about opening repertoires and preparing for your opponents, which is a really key aspect to improving and doing well in classical tournaments. And there are two main resources which I use in order to do that. So the first one I've mentioned already, it's Lichess, and this is really good if you pair it up with something like OpeningTree and you know your opponent's names online. You can definitely go into OpeningTree, type in their name, and then bring out a database which will show all the lines that they play, and you can use that to prepare for their games. And Lichess is excellent for creating an opening repertoire, especially if you're at like a club or beginner level. I think it's more than sufficient, and the Stockfish engine there is okay to use. And I did a separate video on that as well, so you can check that out if you want to learn a bit more. But in terms of those of you who are a little bit more serious for your chess, I would suggest getting something like Chessbase. Chessbase is a paid resource, but it's good for those who are looking to be a bit more serious. And in terms of Chessbase, this is an older version. It's Chessbase 13. What I would normally do is create separate databases for each of my individual opening repertoires. So for example, here I have a folder with, say, all my openings which I intend to play during my tournaments, and here I can create a new database. For example, just right click, create new database. Here we have one already prepared, so let's click on this. One of my favorite openings, the King's Gambit, and from here we can create a board, and let's enter in some moves. So we have f4, and for example in this particular game, let's analyze the d5 variation. So we can call this the fork beer counter gambit. So fork beer counter gambit. Let's save this, and yes, I would analyze the variations here. So for example, let's have a look at pawn to e4, or we can have a look at pawn takes. So this would be a new variation, and from there we can use different resources to check what games have been played. If you don't have a database installed, it's good and advised that you have a database such as a mega database, which is really helpful. So if you click on the reference here, it should bring up all the games played in this position from the database you have. My one's a little bit older, hasn't been updated, so the games only go up to 2019, but we can see what games have been played in this particular position. And yeah, you would do your analysis here. You could also use the online tool here if you don't have a reference database, but I think the reference database is better because it includes a wider selection of games. The online one, I think it only includes more of the top players who have played into this particular position. Okay, and from there, after you sort of done a search and done a bit of analysis, you can also dive a little bit deeper into variations and analyze them with the engine as well, which is very helpful. So let's say bishop check, you can add a kibitzer here, or you can create a new engine up here. And what I normally do is I download one of the engines. Usually I would either use Stockfish, the latest version, which you can download straight from their website. Just download whichever one is suitable for your computer, or you can go for Layla as well, which is one I quite like. So you can also download one of these ones, whichever fits for your situation. We'll go back to Chessbase. After you've done that, you can click on create UCI engine, and then you can select the engine from here, and you can click OK. From there, it should pop up in this list once you load it up, and then you can just load up the engine, and it'll pop up like this, and you'll see the evaluation there. And from there, you can do your analysis and create your files, work on your lines from there. Once you're happy with your lines, you sort of save them here, and it will show up in your Chessbase files here. Also, another thing I like to do when I'm analyzing games or working through different opening variations is having key games, which I call stem games, which are very helpful when you're trying to remember each particular variation. It's good to have like a specific stem game in mind. It's like a model game which shows you exactly how to play a particular variation. So occasionally when you're looking through your particular line, you'll run into a really good game. You should save that one, do some analysis on it, and then keep it for later. And that will always be a reference if you're not sure what to do in that particular position. So just to show you what I mean, let's say this variation here, after the move knight to f6, pawn to e5, let's say knight h5, and this position here. So if you're not sure what to do, we can look through some games. Let's say you run into a really good game. I just happen to know that the top game here between Nepomniachtchi and Firouzja was quite a nice one, where basically Nepomniachtchi got his opponent into a nice King's Gambit trap. So let's copy this game and paste it here. and this can be one of our stem games for that particular variation. So we double click on this particular game and we can again do a little bit more analysis on it. I think Caruana said that in order to fully understand a variation, he used to analyze about 8 different stem games. So you do however many you need until you're sort of comfortable, until you understand some of the ideas and some of the patterns that are arising in each particular position. But for me, I usually do a couple until I sort of understand what is happening and I'm comfortable with the particular line. So again, yeah, you look at the game and you see if both players played the best moves or not and where you could improve on. So obviously the deeper you go in your analysis, the better. You want to be as thorough as you possibly can with your analysis. And yep, that's basically it. Once you're done with that, you save it and you keep it here. You can also export the games later on. Just select output, selection to text file, select PGN. It's probably the easiest file to open up, and you can save that anywhere you want and open it up, say on your phone or laptop later on if you want to prepare during a tournament. It can be very, very helpful. So when it comes to preparing for opponents, you can also use the resources on Lichess and OpeningTree like I mentioned. You can also use chess games, which is really good, or chess tempo to search for games of your opponents. I think they have opening trees for opponents there, which you can look through as well, which is really handy. But here I'll be using Chessbase for those of you who are a bit more serious. And in this mode, the easiest way, at least if you're using Chessbase 13, in the different versions it might be a little bit different. But here what you can do is press the prepare against button, or if you have the database ready here, for example, you can just click on the database and then find the player. For example, let's just go with Dingley Ren because he's playing the candidate soon, playing World Championship match soon. And then here we can right click and click on the dossier. You can also click prepare button, but I usually go dossier. Let's click here. And here it will sort of load up a database of all Ding's games available and sort them out by white and black. And from there you can go through and have a look. So it's almost done. Okay, so here we have the database of games. It breaks down different stats and so on, as well as repertoires. And you can also see a specific preparation for Ding as black, and you can see exactly what your opponent is playing, when they played particular games, and so on. And you can play through the games if you want to. Bring them up in a different tab and so on. And this is very helpful for preparing for your opponents if you don't already use this. So other than that, I also want to mention the importance of practicing. So practicing daily is really, really good as well, or whenever you get time, especially when you're preparing for tournaments. I usually do a mixture of blitz and rapid. So in terms of rapid games though, what I would tend to do is go for more targeted preparation. It would be really good if, let's say, you're learning, let's say in this case, the King's Gambit. So if you could specifically, after you've worked through the different opening files of the variations you have and you have all your stem games prepared, then what you can do is play someone in a match, but you play them in specific opening, of course. So there you play your King's Gambit, that play their lines as black, and afterwards you can do some deep analysis. So it's really important that you go as deep as you possibly can with your analysis, because that will help you out a lot more So look into those middle game positions you're getting, any problems you're running into in the opening as well. So it's a little bit more work, but over time you build on your knowledge, and it will become a little bit easier over time, especially whenever you're playing your tournaments, especially you're preparing for your opponents. Make sure you save that preparation, because even if you don't get it in that particular game, you might get it in another game later on. So it's definitely helpful to know. So those are some of my tips and what I did. I hope you found some of those useful. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you do to prepare. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.